Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another Talent Talks podcast. I'm Scott Rivers, your host, and I am looking forward to another great show today. Today's guest is Shep Hyken. If you're not familiar with Shep, Shep is an expert in customer service and customer experience. And I thought it was perfect to have him onto the show simply because I feel like right now, as I keep saying this more than ever, right, just with everything that we have going on, I think that the customer experience is going to dictate whether or not you get that customer back the next time. And what you're going to hear from Shep is that in order for you to get that next opportunity or get that customer to say yes the next time, it can't be an okay experience. It needs to be an extraordinary experience. And Shep goes through a couple of very detailed things about making sure you're taking care of your customers. He also, and I love this, he also says, we need to take care of our employees first and foremost, because that many times is the difference between a customer having a great experience and an okay experience. And by the way, okay experiences don't bring them back. You can find Shep at his website, which is hyken.com, Hyken. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube right now, you can see the website up and you could take that and click over to it. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes. In addition to that, you can find Shep over on LinkedIn, where he's constantly posting excellent information, again, about making sure you're giving your customers the best experience. He is also a New York Times bestseller. He's a keynote speaker. And in fact, he's also a podcaster, as you can see here. He hosts the Amazing Business Radio podcast with Shep Hyken. Check that out. I think that this is an important conversation, and Shep just absolutely brings it on this call. So I want your feedback. Do me a favor. If you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. You can do that wherever you happen to be listening to it right now. You can hit that subscribe button, and this will automatically send you the updated podcast as we release them. We're releasing them every 2 weeks. We do it on the first week and the third week of every month. And we're going to try to continue that. We're going to do that at least through the first season. I know that we've got probably 15 or 20 of these ready to go out. And so we're going to continue with that into season 2. But the importance of this season is we're trying to provide information to our clients, customers, and friends that will help them to do better in commercial areas of sales and marketing. And then specifically the areas we focus in are the areas of diagnostics, genetics, and also devices. And so we look forward to getting your feedback. Please like and subscribe this. And do me a favor, reach out to Shep on his LinkedIn profile. Let him know that you heard about this on the Talent Talks podcast with Scott Rivers. And without further ado, this is Shep Hyken. Well, Shep, I am looking forward to this show. I am always a big proponent of someone who says the customer comes first. And at a time right now with COVID-19 and everything going on, I think, number one, we need great leaders more than ever. Number two, we've got to figure out how to take care of our customers better than ever in order to make them repeat customers, or as you like to say, we want them back the next time. So thank you for joining us today. We're looking forward to it.
I am excited to be here. And just so you know, I do believe customers are right at the top, but even before that are the people that we work with. Because if it is not for them, we probably can't have a relationship with the customer. That said, the customer, without them, we don't have a business. So we've got to keep that in mind. And you'll love my belief that the customer is not always right. They can still be at the top, but they're not always right.
I can't wait to hear about that. I can't wait to hear about that. That's going to be good. Well,
all right, so much to talk about.
We've got a lot, and so we're gonna make sure we limit this because I know that you've got some time constraints. But how I found you was I think that you did a video with Todd Hartley. Todd Hartley was also on the show, and you know, I listened to it, and you put out a couple of key points that I was like, man, this guy's good. And then I start really digging into it and seeing all of the things that you've done: best-selling author, keynote speaker, trainer extraordinaire. And I sent you the message. I'm glad you're on here today. But going back to LinkedIn, tell me about LinkedIn for you. Why is that so important? Why are you spending so much time putting information out on LinkedIn?
Well, it's a great vehicle to continue to distribute my message. I believe companies today need to think of themselves not as, like in our case, maybe your case, a medical sales type company, but you need to think of a company as a media company. That's what I am. Even though I'm a professional speaker specializing in customer service and experience, most of our income comes from either me speaking or our trainers going out and selling the content that I've created. I'm a media company. Every single day, something's happening on either social media or even mainstream media today. We have a TV show that comes out on a somewhat regular basis through Amazon and Apple TV and the different types of channels. But if we want to connect with customers, the best way to do it is to broadcast. LinkedIn is one of those excellent channels. And what I love about LinkedIn is if you go back many, many years ago when I first started, there was no internet. Okay. I think George Bush, Al Gore had not invented what George Bush called the internets.
Yes.
So
yes.
I got the Republicans and the Democrats in one sentence, nailed them both.
You're covered. So, you're good.
Anyway, the only way to connect with people was to pick up the phone and smile and dial.
Right.
And I always believe that people said, "Oh, you're in the speaking business." I said, "Almost. I'm in the getting the speaking gig business." So the job isn't doing the speech, it's getting the speech. We've got, if we're medical sales, the job isn't just selling a device or selling a whatever. Actually, that is the job. The job isn't just building this. We got to sell it. We got to get it used by customers. So I believe the same thing, smile and dial. I eventually learned, how to direct market and do a newsletter. And then we went online with the newsletter and then the internet. My gosh, I do 3 articles a week. I have guest posts. I do videos. I do podcasts. We tweet. So anyway, LinkedIn is the new phone. Yeah. If you use LinkedIn the right way and you create a following, number one, that generates obviously some interest, hopefully business. But with incredible resources like, I think it's called Sales Navigator, which is a LinkedIn product, you can start to connect with people that you really feel you should be connecting with and do it in such a way that it's like calling, leaving a message, hoping they call you back. But guess what? On LinkedIn, they do.
That's right.
I mean, it's about the same percentage of people that did on the phone 25 years ago.
Right.
So from there, you just build and build, and eventually you get in and you sell.
I had this discussion this morning with one of my clients who has become a friend, and we started talking about, what is he doing with his sales team? How are they getting involved with LinkedIn? Are they driving out content? And I feel like a lot of these managers, a lot of these companies are, I guess, a little afraid of having their individual sales representatives putting out videos and putting out content. But when I talk to guys like yourself and others that we talked about earlier, all of them are talking about, hey, look, you got to build your brand. You got to build the reputation, and it can't all be about selling. And so, what do you say to those companies as you're talking to them about their individual representatives going out and building that brand? Because ultimately it comes back to help the company.
Right. So there's probably some compliance issues that we need to be concerned with, some regulatory issues. We can't say certain things, make certain claims, which doesn't preclude us from putting a video out there. It just needs to be an extra step, and that is to get that video approved.
Right.
So the interesting thing is direct selling, where you call somebody up and say, hey, I'm making a sales call. Do you want to buy from me? I don't think that's the way to go about it anymore. I think it's building a relationship through trust and content. And, you mentioned, what do I use LinkedIn for? Well, obviously it's a vehicle to connect with people who ultimately will hopefully hire me. But, I've got, I don't know, between the followers and the connections, I don't know, 50, 60, 70,000. I can't remember what the numbers are, but it's a big number.
Good numbers.
It's probably close to 60,000 to 70,000 people. I don't know, a tiny, tiny percentage of those people are going to actually hire me. But the good news is I get to broadcast it to everybody, and hopefully within my net, I'm going to grab a few people that are going to be the ones that want me. If you can provide value-added content that's truly helpful, you don't have to sell in that value-added content to get people interested in you.
That's right.
And that's the whole idea. The magic is in the mix of everything we do. LinkedIn is just one channel that we use. But if you are putting that content out there, and you should do it written content, video content, and even audio content. I mean, there's no reason that this is a video, but you can rip the audio track off and put it through iTunes,
sure,
or whatever it is, or iHeartRadio, or any of the other channels for podcasts that don't have a video component to it. So you're constantly, and by the way, once you do, and I know you mentioned you do show notes, those show notes become, if you're listening to things we're talking about, there's tweetable moments in there. That becomes a tweet, that becomes a meme. This is the most amazing thing to me. I look at all different channels, and I know I'm getting off the topic here, but Pinterest. I have people view my memes, and I didn't even know we had. You know what a meme is? It's like it's a pretty looking. You take one of my quotes or a tweetable, statement, and you put it with a pretty background, and then you post it to Pinterest. I get over 1 million people look at this a year. Now, I don't know if any of them have ever picked up the phone and bought from me, but it all adds to the positive reputation of anybody doing this type of strategy.
Right. And I think that you mentioned it, but I think that, companies, especially if they're not focused on all of these different medium opportunities, they should be. And you never know when someone's going to see your work or see what you've done, or become loyal to your brand based upon what they've seen and what they're pushing out as far as a company is concerned. But to me, I think the most important piece is companies have got to let potential customers get to know, like, and trust them. And that's not always trying to sell something. It's not about the instrument. It's not about the new assay or test. It's about who we are as a company as well, and what we do for, philanthropy work, and what we do for our own employees. Those types of things I feel are just as important as the product that you have to sell.
Yeah. So you said something really important. You said people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. The knowing and liking is easy. It's because maybe the company that this person works for has a good reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they got a good product. So they kind of feel like, well, they don't know the person, but they know the company.
Sure.
And if this person's even somewhat likable, and if they're in sales or direct frontline interactions with customers, and I use that word customer loosely, you can call them anything you want, but it's people that pay us for what we do.
Right.
There's a pretty good chance you're going to like us because we're probably likable people, or we wouldn't get the job being on the front line.
Right.
Third part, trust. Trust is not so easy. To me, there's a simple formula for trust, and really it's about creating confidence. And when you have a predictable and consistent experience, and you back that up with a good product, you've got a chance of building trust with that client. But it takes a little bit of time to make that happen. You want there's a 5-step process that I talk about in one of my books, Cult of the Customer. I'm sorry, it's Cult of the Customer. I gotta remember what is what. And in that, the fourth stage is ownership, where your customer owns whatever it is from that experience. And hopefully it's a positive experience, not a negative one, because they can own that too. They can know if every time I do business with this person, they take forever to call me back. They don't get me the proposals on time,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. That's a negative owned experience. But if it's positive and it's predictable, then it becomes owned. And when it's positive and predictable, it actually shifts you into what I call the cult of amazement, which is where people go, wow, they're amazing. He or she always calls me back on time. They always get back to me with the information I'm looking for. Even when there's a problem, I call them because I can always count on them. You get that word always followed by something positive. And that's what creates amazing people and amazing companies.
That's
not all that hard. Being amazing, people think it's over the top, but it's not. It's just a little better than average all of the time.
But average doesn't cut it anymore, does it?
No, average is like mediocre, satisfactory. Years ago, I wrote an article called "The Satisfied Customer is a Dangerous Customer." The dangerous customer is not, it's somebody that you think is happy, but they just move on. Why did they leave me? I thought we were doing fine. They never complained. No, but did they ever praise you?
Right.
Yeah. And so Horst Schulze, who is the co-founder and first president of the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. And by the way, the Ritz is one of my go-to case studies for everything right about how they developed a culture focused on taking care of the guest and creating that amazing service. He said, he and I were kind of like in parallel thoughts, better than average all the time. I had to interview him. I had the opportunity to interview him. I said, Horst, how much better than average do we have to be? And he said 10%. Now think about that. So if on a scale of 1 to 5, if you want to get a 5, just be a little better than a 3 all of the time. You can't drop down to a 3 or less. And by the way, when I say drop down, that's on the total experience. Sure, there's going to be a problem or something that comes up, but when it's handled right, it takes that customer right back to the level of, I know I can always count on them. But think about it, 3.3 on a scale of 1 to 5. That's it.
That's amazing. That's good insight, though. Very good insight. Well, let's talk about as it relates to today. And by the way, I think today could be any time, either in the past or in the future. But obviously, right now we're going through COVID-19. People aren't able to get in front of their customers like they like have been in the past. So how do you get that? How do you get that customer loyalty? How do you make that customer happy during a time like this, where, especially for our audience who are selling medical devices, medical equipment into the hospitals, they're not really going into the hospitals. So
they can't go into the hospitals.
They can't go into the hospitals. There's stories of here and there we're able to move in and talk to our old clients, but for the most part, it's just not happening. So what is it that you do to stay front of mind or front and center within the thoughts of the customer? And then how do you continue that customer loyalty right now?
Yeah, and whether it's COVID-19 or it's some recession or some other crisis that happens, there's always the opportunity to deepen your relationship during these times. There's just a couple of things. Number one, the word pivot comes to mind, and that is simply what other alternative ways can we connect with our customer? And obviously, people who had never heard of Zoom 5 months ago now use Zoom every day to not only do business, talk to their kids.
That's right.
And I'm just using that as a very superfluous example, but there is an idea of, hey, if I can't see you in person, there are other ways. But I think the best way to prove value to your customers in stressful times like these is to become a partner, not the vendor. And hopefully you were the partner before, because that makes it much easier to even deepen the relationship.
Of course.
And the way to do that is not to sell, but to support. And stay in touch. Even if I have nothing to sell you, it's an opportunity for me to reach out to you. How are you? What can I do to help you? I know that you don't need what it is that I sell right now, but I just want you to know that, I tell my clients, in my world, you're not hiring speakers, but that doesn't mean, hey, do you want me to do a webinar for your, what I'll do? I'll do a free webinar for you. As long as we do it in the next couple of weeks, so it doesn't preclude me from other things.
Sure.
If that will be of value to you, and you know what, if I'm not the right guy, you tell me what you want to hear, and I'll go ask one of my friends. They'll do it for you.
That's right.
And if they say they won't do it for free, I'll talk to them, and when I'm done, they'll do it for free. I'm going over the top with this, but the point is, you're there to help, not to sell. You're there to build a relationship. So that's why we talk about partnership. And partnership is really a vendor relationship on steroids. And that is when I care more about you than just being the person that'll write a check for whatever it is that I sell, we start to become endeared to each other. Number two, if I can help you be more successful based on what I sell, or just being a partner. If I remember years ago when, I remember his name, Pineda was the CFO of Ford. And I might be the wrong person, but Ford, the automobile manufacturing company, they had to cut costs in order to lower prices. So they went to their vendors, and they didn't say to their vendors, here's the deal. You got to figure out a way to drop 10%. What they did is they went to the vendors and said, we need you to drop 10%, but we don't want to financially hurt you in the process.
Right.
So let's work together to figure out, how much more do you need to sell from us? What process can we make easier, simpler, so that you can provide us what you've been providing us at a little bit of a discount, so that we can pass that savings on to, the customer if they had it. I just remember that as a great way of describing partnership versus, typical vendor relationship.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, we try, in my business, we call it a partnership. We try to form true partnerships with our clients. And when we have that communication and we start to work back and forth of what is it that you need from us, what is it that we need from you, we come up with some pretty good ideas, and in fact have formed what I would call true partnerships with some of our clients. They call us for all of their needs. We go above and beyond to make sure that everything that we're doing is taking care of them, because that in turn helps to take care of us.
Yep. And a call back to the line you used about know, like, and trust. When you get to that point and they trust you, you're doing a great job when they start asking you about something you don't do or something you don't sell. What's your opinion on this? Can you help me find this? Do you know somebody who can do whatever? And that's really where you want to be. And when that is happening on a consistent basis, you've reached that relationship. And by the way, if you haven't figured it out, I love to talk about generic examples to create what I consider crystal clear pictures. All of us have a financial advisor, or at least most of us do.
Sure.
Whether you go to a bank and deal with somebody at the bank, or you have a stockbroker or whatever. Well, my financial advisor likes to call himself my total financial advisor. And what he wants me to do is, if I want to do a mortgage on my home or refinance my home, he doesn't do that, but he says, you've got to call me and let me help you do it. I know he sells stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That's about it.
Sure.
But anything related, should I lease a car, buy a car? Should I refinance my home, or should I keep the interest rate I have? He's the guy you go to, at least in my mind. I wouldn't go to anybody else. And as a result, he's my trusted advisor. And that's what we want to be to our customers and clients.
What do you think is the key to that? Obviously, financially, you trust this individual implicitly, right? They've got probably...
He's my financial bodyguard, I call him.
They've probably got a lot of your money, and you want to make sure that it's covered correctly, but yet you trust what they're doing. Let's pull that back, right? Let's say you don't have someone's money. Let's say that it's just about something that they're dealing with at work. What are some ideas that you have for... Well, and let's be very specific, I guess. Let's talk about people selling into hospitals, people selling into places that right now are probably hurting a little bit, because a lot of the patients who would have been going in for oncology procedures, even as
they're holding off.
As important as those are, they're holding off. So the revenue's not flowing through the hospitals as it was 8 months ago. So what are some things that you think would be relevant to those individuals in order to make sure that that's happening, to become a trusted advisor outside of financial?
Right. So as a company who sells to the healthcare industry, there are plenty of places to find pretty amazing research that your customers and clients would find interesting, regardless of whether it's something that you sell or not. And for you to become a resource, a beacon of knowledge, if you will, on maybe not all things, but some things related to areas even outside of what you sell, it just establishes a higher level of expertise. Hence my stockbroker who says, I've got relationships with banks. He doesn't make any money on these relationships, but he's got relationships with banks that he knows he can send his clients to, that he can trust are going to get the best deal. So he's, if he knows I'm interested in something, he's sending me information about that.
Yeah.
I may be selling some type of a piece of equipment into the oncology centers and cancer centers of a hospital, but I can give you research that my company is finding that you might find valuable, even if it's unrelated. That's my goal. I want to maintain that relationship, because the person who maintains and deepens that relationship in tough times is going to be better suited when you come out of this tough time, which we will.
Sure.
We will. No doubt about it.
No doubt. That's a great idea too. So when we first started talking, we were talking about customers, and you said, hey, you also have to take care of the employees. So let's talk about the leadership of these companies. What is it that they need to be doing right now, not just to do what they have to do, which is manage their business, but what do they need to be doing in order to lead the organization, to drive the salespeople in the proper way, and ultimately make sure that they're doing what's best for the customer?
Sure. And some of what I'm going to share with you, I think, will tie into both customers and employees together. But leaders, there's certain attributes of leadership that now are more important than ever. So let's talk about customers and employees for a moment. personalities, and by the way, companies too, the personality and cultures of companies, but the personality of individuals are magnified during stressful times. So if you have somebody that is just, let's say you have a customer that is not easy to deal with, in stressful times, they will become harder to deal with.
Are there customers not easy to deal with, Shep?
There might be. I've heard there's a couple. But
okay, for those customers.
And by the way, anger is actually sometimes a manifestation of fear and fright of what's going on, and the frustration, the stress, it causes the personalities to be magnified. And that's why I say even a company who's got a culture, if a company is truly customer focused, boy, in times like this, they become even more customer focused because it's the way they are. They care. That's so I think leadership needs to recognize that the personalities of their salespeople as well are being magnified. If your salespeople are fearful of losing their jobs, of losing major income, and it's creating a huge stressor in their life, it is going to show through when they actually are able to connect with their customers or even fellow employees. So it's going to affect their performance. So as leaders, what can we do to make people feel comfortable? Number two, I think part of that is to be a beacon of I use the word motivation, but it's really hope. And what I mean by that is a leader needs to look at a glass that's half full and say, is it half full or half empty? The answer is yes. So they need to be realistically optimistic.
Right.
I've been doing a little bit of research on the Admiral Stockdale, and actually Jim Collins from one of his books referred to it as the Stockdale syndrome.
Sure.
And so Stockdale in the Air Force, Navy, shot down and ends up in a POW camp. And he was there for quite a long time. And what got him through that was some optimism. He says, but the ones that were most optimistic, that had the highest level of optimism, like, we're going to be out of here, the U.S. is going to come in here, they're going to save us, we'll be out of here by Christmas time, they were the ones that hurt the most because they created this unrealistic optimism. And, Stockdale knew, I'm going to get out one day. I hope it's by Christmas. And that's why in this COVID-19, I hope by later this year, early next year, there's a vaccine that's starting to be implemented, because we know once that happens and it starts to work, people are going to start to be much more comfortable about where things are going in the future. But I can't count on that happening, even though I know it's going to happen. I can't count on it happening at that time.
Sure.
So I'll keep preparing. As leaders, we need to be realistically optimistic. As leaders, we have to teach our people how to properly pivot. That's, I used that word pivot before. We also need to give some level of empowerment, maybe more so than usual, to build those relationships that are necessary. As leaders, we probably during these difficult times need to be spending more time communicating with the people we work with. Example of that, even on my little tiny company, when we couldn't all come in and had to all work remotely, we started having 3 meetings a day. We don't have 3 meetings a week normally, but when nobody could be around each other, now it's 3 meetings a day. Opening morning meeting, 10, 15, 20 minutes. What's going on? What are you going to do? Lunchtime meeting. And we actually had Clara, who's my assistant, and her official title is Director of Details because she manages all the details. We actually made her the HR director as well. And that was the humor, not human, but humor resource director. And her job every day at lunchtime was to bring us some funny video from YouTube to put into the middle of the day. And then, of course, we had our closing day. What did you accomplish? What did you do? And then we start all over the next day. Well, and by the way, we should probably do that more often. But now that we're all together again in our office, our team, it's a small team. There's 4 of us here. We're constantly seeing each other and talking to each other. So we are, back in a different type of communication mode.
Right.
But you get the idea. So staying connected at that level and then empowering people to go out and do a great job and come back and share their stories, praising them when they've done something a little different that's right. And when it isn't quite what you want, this is your learning opportunity, because what you want to teach people to do ultimately anyway, good or bad times, is you want to empower your people to go all the way right up to a line that you've drawn in the sand to take care of your customers.
Right.
So you need to teach them where that line is.
Okay.
And hopefully, and by the way, when you teach them, they don't have to come back and ask you permission to do something. They don't have to wonder whether they're doing the right thing. They're constantly being reinforced or taught what is. One of my clients, a major automobile manufacturer, luxury automobile manufacturer, high-end, they have a number of regional people that do nothing but go to dealerships and deal with big problems that customers and the dealerships have with one another. So if one of the cars happens to be a lemon, if you will,
sure,
which probably doesn't happen very often, this person goes into the dealership and starts to negotiate on behalf of the dealership to try to save the customer and get the customer to keep their car, stay with the brand. They have permission to refund the customer 100% of the money, take the car back. All of them know that. You know how many times they've done that?
I'm going to say none. Or
none
small.
Is the correct answer. Thanks for playing the game.
That's
you're
welcome.
Correct.
Thank you.
They know how far they can go, but they haven't had to go there. That to me is a true vision of not only an empowered employee, but a properly trained employee, because they know if they have to go there, they can, but they also know they don't just do it. When the Ritz-Carlton says to a housekeeper, you have up to $2,000 you can spend to keep your guest happy if there's a problem. I remember I found a dirty towel on my in my hotel room when I checked in. And I mentioned to the housekeeper, hey, I don't think the bathroom, they didn't give me a $2,000 credit on my bill. What the housekeeper did is when I went to dinner that night, came back, there was a little note. Thanks for letting me know. Here's a little chocolate. She put next to it. Hopefully this will sweeten up the day a little for you. It's like she gave me a 45-cent chocolate, but she had $2,000 she could spend if she needed to.
Right. But that was enough. And she knew that was enough to do the right thing. And you probably felt great about it, right? You enjoyed that chocolate.
I was like, a little handwritten note would have been enough. And
That's right.
The chocolate took it to another level.
So know what it takes to take care of the customer and do what's right. And from a leadership standpoint, give your people the flexibility to do anything and everything necessary to take care of that customer. And then by doing so, most of the time that puts in just kind of the mentality of customer success, taking care of the customer. And if you have that, and it's a mentality thing, right? It's just really, it's either ingrained in you as an organization and an individual, or it's not. But as that comes in and you continue to do that, I feel like people will do it more and more often.
Right.
Therefore, you start to build that loyalty. Yeah.
Yep.
Then you build that loyalty. And Shep, you work with, I see it on your website. I hope you don't mind me mentioning a couple of these. You work with a couple of companies that are very well known for taking care of their customers and giving a great customer experience. I think of Disney, right? No one walks out of a Disney park feeling like they had a terrible time. They come out of it exhausted. They feel like that the money was worth it. The kids are happy, which, by the way, don't tell my kids how great it is. I've kept them out of Disney for a long time, but we try to do other things, but I know the experience and I know what people love about it. So people are coming to you to really learn how to do that. And you're giving them these answers.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have clients like Disney and, I just have worked with some amazing companies, amazing hotel brands, Ritz, Four Seasons, Marriott, Hilton. I at one point worked with, I'm pretty much every major manufacturer in the automotive industry. I'm very lucky.
Right.
I've worked with the airlines, sometimes not so proud of that. No. I love my airlines. It's really cool. I'll never forget in the early 90s, actually the early 80s. So I'm really dating myself. See, here's the thing about bald guys. You can't tell how old we really are. One day we start to look old, but you can't see the gray hair. So in the early 80s, just a few years into my business, IBM, who in my mind at that time was the number one customer service focused company on the planet.
Okay.
And guess what? They hired me to do a presentation. When Disney hired me, I'm thinking, what is Disney hiring me to talk to their cast members about service? And it was the managers of all the people of the attractions, the different shops. And I'm talking to these people about something they already know. So here's the cool thing. The reason they hire guys like me is to not just keep them at the top of their game. Mm-hmm. It's to remind them about the things they've already been taught, and they want it coming at a different angle.
Right.
And so I would say 80% of my clientele are people that are already playing pretty high at the top of their games.
Right.
And the others are the ones that say, we got a problem, we need help. By the way, love those challenges as well. Those are fun to work with. But it's pretty cool when you get to come into a company that's so customer focused, that wants to try new things, different ways of approaching it, constantly put messaging in front of people that counts.
And I wouldn't want you to go through your whole roadmap of how to do it, but for those companies that, let's say that they're just not there, they've got a broken process. Where do you start with them? I mean, I'm sure you have to start at the top, and it's got to be.
Yeah. So there's two things I'll share with you. And by the way, we'll do them quickly. I could spend an hour to 2 hours or a half a day or a full day on each of these if we really want to.
And hopefully somebody is going to call you and say, hey, Shep, we need you to come in and spend those 2 days with us. But
well, that would be awesome. But hey, I appreciate that. So number one, you have to decide you want to do this. And there's two. One is an exercise, and one is kind of like my 5-step process for becoming that customer-focused culture. Actually, 6-step process. 6 steps. Here they are real quick. Number one is define what your culture is when it comes to customer service or experience. And it should be a 1-sentence definition. I call that the mantra. The Ritz-Carlton, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. It's obvious. You come to work, we treat you this way, and we expect you to treat our guests this way, ladies and gentlemen. 3 words for us: always be amazing. We want to be amazing for our clients to do business with us, and teach our clients to be amazing to their customers, clients, patients, members, whatever.
Sure.
Ace Hardware, the helpful hardware place. That's 4 words. Here's the thing: when it's that simple, everybody can remember it. So I've spent a little more time than I want on one of them. But number 2 is to communicate that over and over again. Number 3 is to train to it. Everybody gets trained, not just frontline. I mean, everybody, finance department, warehouse, everybody needs to speak the same language and know the goals and understand their customer may not be the actual person who pays us or the organization that pays us, but they may be an internal customer who's dependent upon me to do something for them, or they can't do their job. So number 3 is training. Number 4 is, as a leader, you are the role model. So you have to be out there. You mentioned Disney. Sure. Walt Disney would walk into a theme park, see a piece of paper on the ground, pick it up, throw it away. He knew all of the people who were watching were his cast members, his employees, who said, oh, there's Mr. Disney. But if he walked by that piece of paper, he gave permission for everyone else to do so. So he called this stooping to excellence, being the role model, even at that small level of picking up a piece of paper and throwing it away. So you're the role model. Number 5, you are the defender of the culture. I had a great opportunity to interview a number of CEOs, and I asked them, what's your number one most important job? And one of them said, exact words, I defend our culture. Even though they did all the mergers, deals, relationships with at the big level.
Sure.
He felt his most important job was defending the culture. And number 6, when it works, celebrate it. So those are the 6 steps. You define it, you communicate it, you train people to it, you're the role model, you defend it and keep people in alignment if it's one person, a department, whatever. And then finally, number 6, celebrate it when it works. Yeah. So that's establishing the culture. And I call it 6 simple steps, but remember, simple isn't easy.
Sure, of course.
And then the exercise, which I think is an important piece to do as well, is simply to journey map what your customers experience. And when you look at all the touch points that they have with you, and you can do it linearly, like from the moment somebody calls us for the first time and wants to talk to somebody, or maybe we call them, we set up the appointment. That's part of the journey.
Of course.
And by the way, there's multiple journeys. There's repeat customer journeys, problem journeys, but you take the basic one to start with, look at all those interaction points and say, is that as good as it can be? We could do better than that, or that's perfect the way it is. And then also, if you want to look behind the scenes and see what drives that, you'll start to recognize that every department, and therefore for every person, has a role that they play when it comes to delivering on that service level. One other idea is to take a look at the companies you love doing business with. Everything from, if it could be a manufacturer that you deal with, an inside sales rep at a company, or it could be Amazon. What do you love about those companies? Get into a group with other people and write down everything you love about these companies and get specific. And then say, do we do these things that we love at our company? And if we aren't, can we?
Right.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes, hey, wow, we can do that. Why aren't we doing it?
Yeah,
well,
why not?
Start doing it. Yeah.
Very good. That's great. I want to take a step back. You talked about something earlier, and it's really a hot button for me. You talked about fear, and you talked about fear as it relates to employees, but I think fear in general is it can be good, right? And I had this conversation with David Rutherford, who was also on the show, previous Navy SEAL. He's on a Team Frog Logic. So he talks about fear in two different ways. There's the fear that motivates us and drives us. There's the fear that gets us to run away from those things that are going to hurt us. There's also that fear that cripples us. I feel like personally, that's what stops more people from doing great things than anything else. How would you tell someone to overcome the fear? And does it start with leadership? Does it start with the individual? Is it both? How do you address fear?
Well, you mentioned employees, and my comment about fear was that fear is a result of the stress that people might come from, and
That's right.
that can manifest itself as anger, some other personality problem, if you will. I mean, you don't like dealing with angry people if you can avoid it. If you start, that's just not good. But as a leader, I think we have to trust. When you start to trust people, they won't fear the environment they're in. Empowerment is a huge word to use. There was a kid, he was 18 years old. What is his name? It doesn't matter. He works at a restaurant selling pizza. He's a server at a pizza restaurant.
Okay.
18 years old. And one of the guests asked if he was the owner. And he told me this story after he watched one of my presentations. And I go, well, that's great. Why did he ask that? He goes, that's what I wondered. So I asked the guest, why would you think I'm the owner? Now, he maybe 18, he may have looked 20, 21, but he didn't look like he was a seasoned restaurateur that would own a pizza restaurant.
Okay.
And the guest said, well, you are just doing such a great job of taking care of us. We've watched how you take care of the other tables. We thought this is the owner or maybe the owner's son. And at that moment, he said, I want to be so good that I want everybody to think that I'm the owner. Okay. Which is a great, idea in itself. But there were two things that were driving that. Okay. Number one is he liked the person he was working with, and he viewed that person kind of as a role model. And that's, as a leader, that's what you want people to, do you want to lead through fear where you'll do a great job or else you're out, and then they do a great job only because they're afraid they're going to be put out and won't make money and have a paycheck? Or do you want to be that leader that instills confidence, that gets you out there and grows you, and you become better at what you do? So number one is, his name was Clark, I believe. He liked his owner. Okay. Number two, the owner empowered him to do it. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. There's a concept called 1 to say yes and 2 to say no. And that is, I'm allowed to say yes to you, but if I can't figure out how to say yes and do what it is that you're asking me to do, or do what I think is right, that's the only time I'm going back to my manager, my owner, my supervisor, or whatever. Because then you can tell me what to do. And by the way, the first time you tell me it's okay to do something is the last time you have to tell me to do it. And you should make that practice. Went to a restaurant. I saw a couple of friends out at a resort when we were on vacation a number of years ago, and we decided to meet for breakfast. And the only tables that were available were tables for two. But they were right near each other, and we asked if we could push two tables together. And the hostess said, hold on. And I thought she was going over to push the tables together, but she was going over to ask her manager permission to do so. Okay. So what do you think the manager did? Pushed the tables together, right? Guess what happened the next day? We decided to meet again. Same girl. Said, hey, we were here yesterday. Is it okay we push the tables together again? Hold on just a moment.
Oh, no.
And so to me, that's the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve, And so once you say yes to something, a request, can I do this? That should be the last time your employee ever has to ask you that. So if a salesperson's out there and wondering if they can do something that their customer is asking, if they really don't think they can, by the way, obvious reasons would be it's immoral, it's illegal, that's something we don't do.
Against policy. Sure.
Right. Policy, though, I'm a little worried about that word policy. Policy is a good word, and it's good to have policies, but it's better to have guidelines. If you say in the policy, these are really guidelines, work within this structure. I want to be able to say you're walking a tightrope, and if you ever watch the circus performer walking that rope, they lean to the left and they lean to the right. if they go too far, they're going to fall, but they still are moving around.
As long as they stay on the rope, they're fine.
Yep. Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing with policies. You have to, create a policy that has, now some are very stringent, and there's, employee policies. There's certain ways that, you have to do certain things.
Of course.
That's fine. But if there's guidelines when it comes to taking care of the customer, that's what we need to think of. It's not so much we're looking for gray area, but we're looking for teaching people to do the right thing, how far they can go if they're asked for something special, and just, go with it and trust your people. And when you catch them doing the right thing, use that as a learning example for everyone. And then if they do it wrong, use it as a teaching example for everyone. Just do it in such a way that doesn't cast a negative light on that person. Every single week, we do an exercise here in my little company that we are teaching and have been teaching companies to do for, I don't know, probably about 25 plus years. And we call it the moment of magic card. Okay. And there's multiple variations of this, but the moment of magic card is essentially an index card. That's the size of it. And we ask every employee, and I have, I don't know, hundreds of clients that do this on a weekly or at least monthly basis, where everybody is required to turn in an example of when they've taken care of their customer. And especially if they're doing something a little different. And the manager reads this, pats the employee on the back, metaphorically speaking.
Of course.
And then they may take the best of the best and run it up the flagpole as to whether or not we want to try to incorporate this into a best practices manual.
Wow.
Okay. Now, many times it's a client emailed me, I got back to the client within 30 minutes, they were so impressed. Okay, that's great. Okay. So by the way, when I saw that happening over and over again, I realized we didn't have a specific criteria for response times to clients on phone calls, emails, or any other, on our website or forums. So we put into place a very specific guideline. We get back to people within this amount of time, and it can be sooner. That's fine. That's your gray area, if you will, doing it sooner. If I say you've got to get back to somebody within an hour, and that's our policy or guideline, it's okay to do it in 15 minutes. It's not okay to do it in an hour and 15 minutes.
That doesn't work. It's got to be within those guidelines.
But this little exercise where we ask everybody to share their best examples, and 2 to 3 sentences max, takes somebody a minute or two to do, but it is a great conversation piece during a weekly meeting, just to spend 5-10 minutes to be more aware of the service you're creating for people, more aware of how we're having experiences with customers. So our colleagues, other salespeople, support people, or anybody else in the company can hear what we're doing.
That's good. That's good. I like that. All right, Shep, I see the guitars in the back. So next time I want to have the guitars coming out. So for those of you listening to this on audio, Shep's covering one. It looks like I see 2 guitars. I see an electric. And is that a Taylor back there? You got a Taylor hidden back there?
Taylor, no, actually that is. I'm in my office. You saw my man cave at home. I have guitars across the wall.
Okay.
And you think I'd be rather good with that many guitars, but no, I just collect.
Okay.
No, I play almost every day. But one is a decent Stratocaster, Fender Electric, and the other one is a very inexpensive gift that somebody sent me as a thank you. And I thought it was one of the coolest gifts because that guitar, this may be something for us to talk about too, has my name engraved on it. And so there's this company called Man Crate.
Okay.
I don't know if you're
I'm not familiar with them.
It's cool gifts that men love. I would imagine they have a women's crate too, but they used to say, I think it was maybe a few $100s. You get this guitar, we engrave it for you, and it's a cheap guitar. But you want to know what? As inexpensive as that guitar is, and it doesn't feel expensive, it sounds beautiful. It does. Sometimes you just get the right wood and it works. So what I use that for is at the end of the day, I play a little after everybody leaves, get my head back into a nice, comfortable place, and then go into writing mode.
That's good. That's good. Shep, what do you, and we could go on and on. I'm not going to keep going because I know that we're going to run out of time, but what do you listen to today just to stay motivated, sharp? What are the things that you're listening to or reading that maybe others might enjoy right now?
Sure. Well, I don't watch the news.
That's
at least the local news. And even before COVID-19, it's like, I don't need to hear about the murders and the crime. And I want to hear about the weather and the sports. And I want big items. So listening wise, because I walk to work every day, but my walk is about 3 minutes. I live in a condo that's literally 200 steps from the office building where I work.
That's
I have an
very
incredible
convenient.
lifestyle. So I don't get to listen to podcasts on the way to work, but I do sometimes turn it on. What I love to do is I love to read. The New York Times has a short little summary they put out every single day of the 3 to 5 most important stories you need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I get the Week magazine. I actually have that mailed to me, and it's about 36 pages, I believe, of what happened last week, but it's the big stories, and they give me perspective from all viewpoints.
Okay.
The Week also has a daily digest of the 10 most important things you know for the day that's happening in the world. Most of that is not true negative news. If you're going to get 10 items, you might get 2 or 3, COVID-19 related news. Maybe, there's a crisis going on, but you get to hear what's going on beyond that. That's important. I read a tremendous amount. What you don't see is right behind here is a stack of books that I've still got, and it dwindles, it goes up and down. I'm very lucky. People send me books. They hope that I'll write about them or whatever. Sometimes they want me to endorse them, so I get the books even before they come out.
Right.
I read 40 books a year, maybe more. And when I say read, I read through them, and if it's a great book, then I really spend hours and days on that book.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when I was traveling around, that was my time to read. You're sitting on the plane waiting for the plane to take off. You can't go on your computer. You read for a little while. So,
right. Kindles or real books?
I like them both.
Okay.
The nice thing about the Kindle is that, it's real easy to turn it on and off real quick. And it's thin, and you've always got extra books ready to go.
So when traveling, I'm always with a Kindle. I like the feel, texture, and the ability to write in a real book. So that's
so
mine.
If I like the book that I'm reading on Kindle, I buy the book to mark it up.
Yes.
Yep.
Same thing. Awesome. Shep, we are all about talent here. Obviously, Cerca Talent is focused on finding the right talents for our clients. What are those things that you look for when you're hiring individuals for your company? What is the thing that when you interview someone, if they have this, you're more likely to hire them than any other characteristic or trait?
So that's great. And I'm going to tell you where I learned this from Jim Bush, who recently retired from American Express. He was their senior VP worldwide customer service.
Okay.
I interviewed him for one of my books, The Amazement Revolution. And we talked about hiring good people. Mm-hmm. And I tried this out, and it was unbelievable. He said, Shep, there's a lot of people that come to us with support center experience. Now, they're good on the phone. They're great at flipping through screens. They've been doing it a long time. And then there's somebody that may never have had that experience, but they worked at the front desk of a hotel. Mm-hmm. They worked there for years. They worked in banquets. They know what hospitality is. Mm-hmm. I want the hospitality mentality. I can train them to flip through screens. So one of my great assistants at one point, she came to me and I said, so what happened? She goes, just moved to St. Louis. What'd you do? It's on her resume. She's telling me, she goes, I worked 5 years doing front desk and banquet work at this hotel in whatever city. I go, great, you're hired. I mean, it wasn't quite that fast. My assistant, she is very young, and she's very, very good at what she does. She would never wanted to be an assistant. She didn't plan to be an assistant. She went to school. She English, writing. She actually theater major. Okay. She came out of school. She started working at Trader Joe's. Loves the environment at Trader Joe's. Well, you want to know about Trader Joe's? Somebody once said to me, who would want to work at a grocery store? I said, that's not a grocery store. That's Trader Joe's.
It's an experience. It's an
experience. What experience? The whole team member concept, the chipping in, the doing, the attitude is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. I don't want her to hear. I prayed that she would take the job offer because I knew that she was really intelligent and had the ability to write. So I knew I could train her and teach her to do the things that we needed to do in her company to make that work. But man, that personality, she comes in every day. Good morning. Sometimes it drives me crazy, but I love it. No, seriously, I do love that she does that. She's so upbeat, and the clients feel it on the phone. They sense it with her enthusiasm. And I would rather hire somebody with that hospitality mentality. Yeah. Now, in what you do and what you're recruiting for, there's a background that's needed. It's a trained background. Sometimes it's educational. So let's flip to the healthcare side for a second.
Okay.
One of my clients was a medical system, multiple hospitals, And there was not a nursing shortage, a little bit of a nursing shortage, but there was a shortage of nurses with the right personality to fit in this culture. That was probably the bigger problem.
Okay.
So as skilled as these nurses might be, after coming out of school, properly licensed, properly trained and educated, they weren't a personality fit. And they chose to shut down a portion of the hospital rather than put people in that might erode what they're promised to the patients and their families are.
Sure. Yeah.
That's putting your money where your mouth is. And what they were looking for, again, was probably that hospitality mentality. And if they didn't have it, they wouldn't hire it. But if they found it and the person had that skilled background, bring that person in.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Each position, each type of role has something that's necessary. But I find that you've got to find the cultural fit for the organization. And so I hire for cultural fit first and foremost. Yep. And then after that, the other things can fall in line, whether it be hospitality, whether it be that tenacity, whatever it is you're looking for. First thing you got to look at is that cultural fit.
Cultural fit's important. And even for people who are selling equipment into hospitals, oftentimes there's a representative from that company that's almost like an employee of that hospital. They're there so often.
Right.
Working with the docs. They may even be in the OR room with them. They need to be really, really sharp at what they do, but if they don't fit into the culture, the friction that's going to create is going to be a problem down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. All right, Shep, now's the easy time. We're coming into the end of this. Let's tell everyone where they can find out more about you, and then also, what do you have coming up? I mean, I know you've got some online learning that you're doing with the virtual training. So tell us more about that before we end the show.
Sure. So Hyken.com, HYKEN.com is my major website. Go there, sign up for, I'm offering up this research report, the 2020 ACA report, Achieving Customer Amazement, ACA. And it's just filled with stats and facts. It's free. And so much of what I do is give away. We talked about this earlier. I'm a media company. Mm-hmm. Well, when you turn on the TV, that doesn't cost you anything, right?
Right.
So we're doing the same thing. I have a YouTube channel, Shep.tv. How easy is that?
Very easy.
There's 600 videos. If your people want to listen or watch a short video and use it at a meeting, we've got plenty of content, and I have new videos coming out every single week. Our online programs, the easiest way is shepondemand.com, and that's we have multiple courses where I'm sitting across from you talking to you, just like I'm talking here. And then let's see, what else? What's new? What's exciting? Of course, I've got my books, and we had a re-release of a book that came out a while back this year. Perfect time to come out is right in the middle of COVID-19, because Amazon says, buy today, we'll ship in 2 months.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you want to know what my publisher did that was really cool?
Tell me.
Buy today, and Amazon, because Amazon, and by the way, I'm not knocking Amazon, they had a lot of important things to get to people beyond a business book. But my publisher said, let people know if they buy today, we'll send them the ebook at no charge so they can at least get the information right away.
Cool. That's good.
There's an example of pivoting. There's an example of saying, you know what, I could sell you the book and I could sell you the ebook, but we know all you want is the book. I mean, you just want, so let's get it to you right away. And thanks for buying the book.
Yeah, that's nice.
The way it works. So I have the Customer Amazement Summit coming up, and it's a free summit, September 15th. If you go to customeramazementsummit.com, and by the way, you are the first person I've told, because I think the landing page went live like in the last couple of days. And I have 8 or 9 of my friends from all over the world who are going to be sharing information about how to deliver a better experience. We have some what I call in the trenches interviews with the head of reservations and guest experience for Hilton Hotel. We have the head of customer experience for Volkswagen over in Australia, who's a friend of mine. And even with all the issues with Volkswagen, we've watched their ranking go up higher and higher because of the experience. I've got a guy that actually took 250,000 customer support calls. Okay. And he shares insights on how to deliver a better experience.
There's got to be good information coming out of that.
My gosh.
That's cool. That is cool.
Big number. So
well,
anyway,
we will put that link
free.
in. We'll put that link in the show notes. I'll make sure the website's in the show notes. We'll put the latest book in the show notes. Make sure that all that's showing up.
Well, thank you.
Shep, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate you being on the show. I know that people are going to get a lot out of this. This one has gone over, guys. I do apologize. Hopefully, there's such good content coming out of this. No one stopped listening. Shep, I hope that you will come back and do this again with us.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Awesome.
I've got more content. You just keep asking questions.
That I can do. And don't forget, next time we're pulling out the guitars. We might have to do that offline, though. We'll pull out the guitars together and see what we can come up with.
All right.
Awesome, Shep. Thank you so much for being here today. Everyone, Shep Hyken. Shep, we'll talk real soon. Thank you, sir.
Can't wait. Thanks so much.
Take care. Thank you again for listening to another Talent Talks podcast. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, luckily Shep remembered and mentioned it during the show, is that he has a free workshop, and it is a virtual presentation workshop. He's got a number of people involved. You can find it at www.virtualshep.com. Amazing podcast, right? Great guest, a ton of benefit, especially given all that's going on right now. I feel like that if we take care of our customers, they will in turn help to take care of us. And that's what we try to do at our business. And hopefully you're doing the same. Do me a favor again, if you haven't, reach out to Shep. Let him know you heard about him on the Talent Talks podcast with Scott Rivers. I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Please send any feedback, comments, anything else you have. We'd love to hear it, and make sure you're subscribed. Whew, that was a lot. Thank you all. Have a great day.